Women, unfortunately, grow up fearing that they might be attacked or even worse, that they might be sexually assaulted.
That's right. And that fear can be crippling. But ladies, you can fight back.
And this is Chick2Chick. It's 1 in 6 women will be sexually assaulted during their lifetime. And if you're under the age of 30, the risk is even higher.
I mean, I had friends that were sexually assaulted. And if you think about it, throughout the span of time of our lives, we just feel sometimes so uncomfortable. Like the arm hairs will stick up when you know that a young man or an older man is looking at you. I mean, heck, I'm still at the grocery store later at night. My head's on a swivel and I'm checking to see who's parking next to me.
Well, I walk all the time and I walk by myself and I'll be on a path and I'll see a man coming towards me and I instinctively will grab my phone and I'm ready to push 911. And it might not be fair to that man, but unfortunately, that's the space that we're in. And I don't think men realize that women have this innate fear. And it's because statistically, there is a reason for that. And we're trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we're going to learn today is that we can if we have the right tools.
We can fight back, which brings us to our guest today, Gloria Marcotte. She has started something called the Soul Punch Self-Defense. Gloria, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Why did you start Soul Punch Self-Defense?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. And I just appreciate the opportunity to let you know all about Soul Punch. And the reason it started was for my own safety defeats, to be quite honest. When I walked through those safety defeats, I was an Olympic level athlete. And when I walked through those safety defeats, it's because I wasn't prepared. I did not prepare for that event and I went to shutdown. I know why now. And so my whole goal is to get Soul Punch out on the planet, train 1 million women on the planet in power and safety that turns around and trains 5 million other women and young girls so we can start changing the safety equation for all of us.
I like that. It's going to keep going and it'll create a life, life of its own. We talked about young girls and the prevalence of this happening. The risk is higher if you're under the age of 30. We're a little bit older here. We kind of know, but how do we get our young girls to understand this? And how do we get our young girls to learn to protect themselves and to be on guard and to be aware?
Great question. So we need to start as soon as humanly possible, right? We don't always get to the safety equation until something happens. And if we can stop it before it happens, well, then we're even that much better off. But here's the reality. Whatever we are going to use to save our life or save from that event, we have to train with to save ourselves from that event, whether it's hands-on or a tool. And so we have to get to knowing our level and our skill level. And how do we do that? Well, we start as young as possible and we start training from the inside out. I'm talking command presence, not having to say yes to every equation. That friends of friends are not really friends. Like we have to intimately, familiarly know the people in, at, and around us because we need time, distance, space, and a stopping action when an event occurs. So the more we can layer our levels of safety and the younger that we can start, the better opportunity we have to help ourselves as we're navigating walking the planet as a woman and a young girl.
I think one of the things that comes to mind for me, I have all girls, Gloria. So this has always been something I've worried about. And, there are all sizes and stages. And so I worry about the size of my daughters as they were growing compared to an attacker. So when you're talking about what you're going to teach, does the size matter or can we little ones still pack a big punch?
Oh my gosh, you are absolutely correct. And I love that question. And the size doesn't matter. So here's the difference with who we teach. One, our classes are for every young girl and woman. Okay. Our ages range from 10 to 65. It is not the size that matters. It's actually definitively knowing how to break down the body and getting to the skill level that you know how to break down the body. And that is what we teach. We teach the inside out equation and we teach you the skills of how to break down the body, how to use leverage, how to use layering, all of those things combined so that we can just get out of the situation and get home safely.
Well, and on top of that, I feel like there's a lot of muscle memory involved. So is this something you kind of have to practice? Because if you just kind of learn it that one time, how do you know to just have that skill set prepared and ready to go?
So here's a good statistic for you, and you're right on that again. So it takes 1,500 to 1,800 times of repetition to build in a new skill. So self-defense is not a one and done. However, my particular market also doesn't want to spend every Thursday in a dojo in a martial arts facility learning how to do a fighting style to just simply go safely from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. So quarterly is a really good target for what we train in our niche, and it's ongoing. So it's not a one and done, and it never should be a one and done, but it's a skill builder. You can't learn everything at once. You've got to take it in micro implementations. You have to start with a base and you have to build on that base. We just happen to work with the women that don't want to go every single Thursday. Quarterly is usually what we do.
So you talked about starting from the inside out, teaching girls these skills, and you said something about command and presence. So talk us through something when you are referencing that command. What do you mean by that? And show us what you mean by that.
Absolutely. So here's a good example. Command presence could be, instead of walking, maybe young girls walking across a campus or in a mall, whatever that is, as you are walking, if your face is in your phone and you're not paying attention to the world around you, or you're just trying to avoid eye contact, that gives you the look of like perhaps you could be vulnerable. What I'm saying is stand up, get your face out of your phone, pay attention to the world around you, and let them know, I am going to be your biggest ever loving nightmare if you decide to go sideways on me. The reality, right? And that's how we have to be. So your command presence alone can change that dynamic. You've got to let them know. You've got 7 seconds. It takes 7 seconds for them to decide if you're the one that they're going to pick. And the reality is, within that 7 seconds, you've got to bring your command presence. You've got to bring your wherewithal and tell them, this is going to be a really bad idea.
Okay. I love that. It's like you got to stare through their soul and be like, not today.
And use
not
your voice.
Me.
Through the soul.
Ask
through
her
the
about
soul.
using your voice.
Listen, I would think that it's not like, no. So it's probably like guttural, from your diaphragm, you want to yell, correct?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally guttural. So the difference between the scream and the yell, when it's a scream, it's like Scary Movie. Do you remember that movie, the shower scene?
Oh, yeah. It's from your throat. It's weak. It's from your throat.
Being afraid and not doing anything about it, as opposed to the guttural from your core, from your core, and letting them know, I'm going to follow that up. If that's not enough of a warning for you, then I'm going to be ready.
So you start by saying, ladies, let's concentrate on your presence. Let's concentrate on using your voice. Then you get into different self-defense tactics. One thing that you're teaching these young ladies is something called the sternum stop. Let's take a look at that right now.
So he tries to put me in a bear hug. Boom, I've stopped it. Now, if he tries to use all of his muscles, which I'm not defeating muscles, I'm just going to use body mechanics. Go ahead and pull me to you. Really hard, really hard, really hard. Okay, now I want you to focus on 2 things. 1, I've got my elbow into his sternum at a 45-degree angle. I've got my wrist against his carotid artery. So the harder he pulls me, go ahead, the more I'm going into his carotid artery. And I'm not doing any work. This is not a strength-based technique.
Okay, so we just watched you demonstrate the sternum stop. Talk us through that and what that does to the person who is coming at you.
The sternum stop, what I'm using is my arm as a 2x4, and I'm using that so I can create the space so that I can have the more ability to move to do that next best technique, and I can stop them from wrapping me up, which is a more detrimental situation. It's not a good situation if I can't use my arms, my legs, or my body to get out of that situation. So I've got to stop the forward movement. So once I create that stopping action, then I can respond from there.
Some women are really meek and mild. How do you get them to really have that much expression to do what needs to be done?
Well, the dynamic that we teach is by women for women, and in that class, there's a level of bonding that isn't present otherwise, right? So in an all-women environment, it allows a little bit of expansion that doesn't normally exist. Past that, we create a very comfortable environment where they have to start learning and get to the knowing of what their skill is. And so we have to start manipulating the body. But here's the thing, and I get that question all the time, well, what if they're really, really big? So I'll go on my knees and I'll do that exact same move. Size does not matter. And actually, the smaller you are, the more leverage you have. Okay. And so the center of gravity and the leverage that you have as a smaller individual is amazing. And so we actually just teach how powerful the body is. And this move blows women away. That's one of their favorites, actually, because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I could do that. And so it's totally empowering when they start learning just how body mechanics can help them in any given situation.
You know, it's sad to talk about this, but it's just a fact of life that sexual assault is so prevalent on college campuses. How is it important is it that we get our young ladies equipped and ready and to be prepared in case they're in this horrible situation at college?
So the more we prepare before they even get to college, I created a whole curriculum that's online that they can learn with their families in their homes. And I incorporate it with a defense alert device that's allowed on all campuses that notifies their family should they go through that event. It'll immediately notify them with their GPS coordinates on a map. And so I guess my point is we have to prepare. That is the world that we live in, unfortunately. So we have to prepare. The sooner the better, instead of the after, which is getting there and then trying to respond to that event.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I've got one that's still in high school and she's driving, and I think she's out by herself quite a bit more. And I'm always telling her, to be prepared. And I'm sure having a daughter, it feels the same way. What's something that you want to let ladies know as kind of like a final thought? And then how can they find you for more information?
Yeah. So the final thought is this, is if, and I tell my daughter about it all the time, is absolutely use your voice and everything that you do. Use your command presence. Don't think because you are a young girl or a woman walking the planet that you don't have the power within yourself to command your environment. You do. Nobody has the right to abuse you, harass you, or sexually assault you. You have to take care of that, and you have to know that you're going to be able to take care of that. So we kind of have to change the equation of thinking of what happens after as to let's get proactive. Let's prepare so that we can be better prepared when it presents itself. I hope that makes sense. So the empowerment from the inside out is so important. The preparing is so important. It's not paranoid. It's preparing. That is the world we live in. And so we've got to prepare them the best that we can before they get there, and know that you have the power and the strength inside of you. You just don't know it until you start training it. And when you start training, it doesn't have to be a sad equation. It can be a very powerful equation where you can now walk the planet differently, knowing that you're going to be okay. And where people can find us, 1millionwomen.info, like the number 1 millionwomen.info, which is the movement training 1 million women on the planet.
And we applaud you for doing this. We love
you.
the fact that you came on this podcast. Great information. Gloria, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I love what she said. It's sad that we are paranoid. As women, we are paranoid.
Yes.
But I'm prepared.
Yes.
I am prepared. When I am out alone, I am like this.
Yeah, on a swivel.
I'm like 360, my head's spinning around like Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
And we're used to it now.
I'm looking.
Right.
I'm on it, and I'm aware. And every woman, every young girl, every teenager, you've got to be prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I worry about with my girls walking out into the world. I am certainly going to make sure that they listen to this podcast and watch that. We appreciate you being with us today. Do us a favor. Head over to our Chick2Chick YouTube channel, like and subscribe until we're back to chirp about another topic.